That would be an excellent start.
Hey, everybody, and thank you for joining us here at the Free Assange Vigil. With me today is co host Misty Winston, our good friend Jason Burmess, and Deepa will be joining us shortly. But while we're waiting on her to hop in, I do want to run through the numbers with everybody. We have 3,791 days of the illegal and arbitrary detention for Julian Assange. We have 752 days since the Wikileaks founder was trafficked from the Ecuadorian embassy after being sold to the US and the UK for a $4.2 billion loan from the International Monetary Fund to the nation of Ecuador. We have 717 days since District Judge Vanessa Baraister's January 6 ruling denying Julian Assange bail after personally ordering his release and no extradition on January 4th. We have 1,416 days of federal incarceration for whistleblower Reality Winner. We have 1,346 days of inhumane treatment for the alleged Vault 7 whistleblower Joshua Schultes. And at least 929 of those days has been spent under special administrative measures. We have 751 days since the political persecution of Oli Bini started by the Ecuadorian government. But our two pieces of good news: Chelsea Manning has been out for 409 days and streams regularly to Twitch. And Jeremy Hammond has 56 days of freedom outside of a penitentiary. He is still under really strict parole, but he is no longer a resident of any federal or state institutions. So with that, how are you doing today, Misty?
I'm okay. I'm doing okay, I think. I don't know. It's just another day of bullshit, you know. Bill Maher's mad at people on Twitch, which is funny.
Oh,
You
well.
said Twitch, and it made me think of that with Chelsea streaming, but he's such a douche canoe. He really is. Anyway, how are you doing, Burmess? What's going on, man?
I'm doing super fantastic. Through the last week or so, I've been connecting with more and more new people. As you guys know, we're doing the Maskless Mother's Day picnic in Crow Creek Park, Bettendorf, Iowa, noon to 5 this Mother's Day. Everybody is welcome. I don't care how you voted. I don't care what your political beliefs are. What I do care about is that you come down, you bring your mother, your grandma, your sister, your daughter, whoever, and have a good time, have a burger, have a hot dog, and let people know that we don't have to wait for authoritarians to tell us to be human beings again. We can do that on our own. We don't have to wait for permission for July 4th. And I'm pretty pumped on it. I'm seeing a lot of small business owners. And actually, some other really good news. The sheriff of my county has recently released this with a little bit of pressure from these groups. As the sheriff of Scott County, I have directed my agency not to enforce mask mandates or to serve any business with an enforcement action for not following mask mandates within their establishment. Although the COVID-19 pandemic has had a serious effect on the lives of millions of people, as Americans, we are entitled to choose how we mitigate our own risks. The fear and anxiety created by those who demand compliance is inexcusable. And that is Sheriff Tim Lane. So we thank him for that.
That is pretty ballsy.
I can. How are you guys? Can you hear
Doing
me?
well. Yes, we can hear you. Yep.
Finally.
Yep.
Hello, Jason.
How are you?
Nice to meet you. I'm good.
Nice to meet you as well.
Oh, yeah, you guys haven't met yet? Okay. Yeah, that's Jason. This is Deepa. Deepa, that's
Hello.
Jason. Proper introductions. How's it going, Deepa? I'm really excited for your event. I'm really glad that you're here because,
So am I.
well, tell everybody what you have coming up.
So this Saturday, that's Saturday the 8th, we're having this huge international festival of whistleblowing, dissent, and accountability. It sounds like a mouthful, but it's got some interesting stuff. We're having some art, some music, a few films. We're also having some of the most amazing people in the world, at least in my bit. People like Nancy Hollander, Niels Meltzer.
I was just reading through the list, and it is like there's amazing people that are going to be there. I mean, Max Blumenthal, Jonathan Cook, Marjorie Cohn. Let's see, Tariq Haddad, Selma James. I mean, there's just so many. Joe Loria, Lori Love, Ray McGovern, Stefania Maruzzi. I love her. Craig Murray. We love Craig Murray.
Yeah.
Oh, Juan Passarelli. And everybody knows how much I love Juan Passarelli. I talk about it all the time. He's one of my favorite people. John Pilger. Yeah. So it's an amazing list of, like, I could go on. It's an amazing, like, who's who of cool people.
Yeah. And Jeremy Hammond's going to be joining us too, which should be good because we have.
Wow, that's going to be awesome.
That is going to be awesome. So when does it start? What time does it start? How long is it running? What's the schedule? Like, tell us all about it, because everybody should check this out.
Thanks. So it starts at about 8 in the morning UK time, which is 3 a.m. New York time. So it's a bit early for you guys, but everything's recorded, so you can come back to some of the ones you missed later. But we continue through the day. We have people like, quite, I would say, controversial people like George Galloway, who has his own opinions and makes them very clear. We also have, I don't know, sorry, I'm echoing back to myself. Maybe there's a microphone on somewhere.
Is it me?
It might be.
Oh, it's me.
On this end.
Misty has a sneaky microphone that likes to echo every once in a while.
Yes, it's annoying. Sorry. I'm so sorry.
There's so we start in the morning with Nikki Haga, the New Zealand journalist who was also a witness in Julian's case, Julian Assange's case. He's a really really exceptional investigative journalist who's really put his own life on the line to expose what's really going on in terms of war. We have a really interesting session later on called When the Criminals Control the Law. And we're going to have a few very interesting people talking about, for example, we've got Andrew Feinstein, who runs Corruption Watch and also is an expert on the arms trade. He's going to talk about what we call the Luanda leaks and also the corruption with Jacob Zuma in South Africa. Zuma, tried to make the South African people pay for his he came out as being corrupt, that for his defense he passed a law to allow the South African to force the South African people to pay for his legal fees, and they've just overturned that. So Andrew's going to tell us a little bit about that. We're going to have John Christensen, who founded the Tax Justice Network, talking about Jersey and the corruption there. We're going to have a few other interesting people through the day. Let me just pull up the list so I don't just make this up as I go along, because I've been speaking to a few people today and my brain's kind of fried, to be honest. So sorry that I'm so slow. We have somebody who's quite interesting, and I hadn't realized quite how much significance he has. It's a gentleman by the name of Martin Garbus. He's an expert on the First Amendment, and for those of you who are interested in freedom of speech, who are interested in both our right to know and other people's right to tell us about things, I think his session will be really interesting. He'll be doing quite a detailed discussion about freedom of speech. We're also going to have a German panel for those of you who speak German, which is going to happen at one point in the day. We're having people like Nancy Hollander tell us about their experience defending terrorists. We have at about 6:30 in the evening, which is about 1:30 New York time. I don't know what it is in other places, but I think the central time zone is about 8 hours behind that. We have Mohamedou Ould Slahi, who was a detainee at Guantanamo, and he was detained for a very long time and treated really terribly. Those of you who've watched the film The Mauritanian will know his story, but he's going to come and talk to us about torture and how the US essentially evades its responsibilities within the law by keeping Guantanamo open. And alongside him, we're going to have Andy Worthington, who's an expert on Gitmo. We're also going to have people you like, Misty, people like Ray McGovern and John Kiriakou. And you spoke about Selma. Selma's now in her 90s, but she's a real firebrand for somebody in her 90s. She's still going strong, talking to us about race, sex, and class. We have an interesting guy called Frank McGuinness. He's a lawyer, and he's going to talk about why we should be freeing Assange and going after people like Tony Blair and George Bush. So that should be quite interesting. And then we have people like Norman Solomon, the journalist, and Chris Williamson and Justin Schlossberg. People you may or may not have heard of these people in the US. So sorry, I've been wittering on for a while. So over back to you.
I'm super excited actually for the whole list of speakers, because this is going to be an all-day event. You guys kick off at like 8 o'clock in the morning in the UK, and then it just keeps going, which is, I believe, 3 o'clock Eastern time. 3 a.m. Eastern time is when we'll be starting out with you. So I'm super pumped to have that going.
Yeah, and it's going to go on till about just past midnight UK time, which is about 7 o'clock Eastern. And then we're going to have, on the next day, we're going to have a range of films being shown, one of which is a film which most people don't have access to yet. It's called Hacking Justice, and it's by this really amazing Spanish-German filmmaker called Clara Lopez Rubio, and she follows Baltasar Garzón and Julian through their court cases, through their relevant lives as well, and it's really good. It's really quite thoughtful and thought-provoking.
If I could jump in, is this going to be streamed on platforms like YouTube, or do you have a different platform that you're using? Obviously, everything's going to be archived. How's that going to work?
Thanks, Jason. We've tried very hard to kind of resist surveillance capitalism. So we've even the website on which you can find out what's going on. It's www.whistleblowingfest.org. That's www.whistleblowingfest.org. That's on a really interesting new site called Mobilizon. And when you click on that hashtag, you should not hashtag on that site title, you should be able to go into it. But we're going to show it on, we're going to run it on Jitsi, but on a version of Jitsi, but it's going to come out through Big Blue Button in terms of the bigger rooms will be on Big Blue Button. We'll also be streaming it through PeerTube. Of course, for those of you who are not on PeerTube or whatever, it's also going to be on YouTube, restreamed on YouTube and Twitter, so it'll be archived in those places. Cheers, Jason.
I believe Steve and Josh are going to be streaming it on the Slow News Day and with A4A too, so it should be showing up on at least one Rockfin channel, if not 2 to 3.
Yeah, and everybody should check it out, because seriously, the list of people that are going to be in one or at one event at one time or during one day it's awesome. Like they're some of my favorite people, seriously. So yeah, definitely everybody should check that out, I think.
Well, not to mention that, just the subject matter that she just brought up in regards to Abu Ghraib, Gitmo, these black sites. We were promised these were going away in 2007 by the entire left establishment in all of those debates. Everybody from Hillary Clinton to Joe Biden to John Edwards to, yes, Barack Obama, all told us they were shutting them down. And now Zombie Joe just doesn't seem to remember. I mean, admittedly, he doesn't seem to remember. But it's not like
there's a very good chance he doesn't actually remember.
Yeah, no, Joey days are over. He doesn't remember. I get it. He's not really in charge. But these black sites continue to be used. They're not only a blight, but an epicenter for torture and physical and psychological operations against human beings. Mm-hmm. That is not only never discussed, but never really investigated. It's only because of people like Julian Assange and Seymour Hersh doing those articles about it based on Julian Assange and Wikileaks' release.
God damn it, you guys. Okay, maybe I should bounce. I don't know.
No, I can't hear you when you did that. Sorry. So I was done with my little rant and rave.
Yeah, I mean, it's really good that people are talking about this again, because we had 19 years of Gitmo now this last month. What was it, 2 months ago? And you just think, how is this place even open? once we found out what went on, because whenever I see all of Julian's stuff, right, when I see WikiLeaks and the revelations, my first instinct is, we said, sunlight is the best disinfectant. So now we've had all this sunlight, what's happened? And the answer is really, it's not just about sunlight and transparency, it's also about power and how we organize as citizens to, to not put up with the false left, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And to actually, stand behind those that are willing to stop fighting around the world and start investing in paying people a reasonable wage and giving children schooling and getting them some food. And we've got so many problems, and here we are spending billions and millions either trying to go into outer space or trying to bomb the hell out of another country, which is, for example, with Libya. They've completely destroyed Libya, which was fairly well advanced despite Gaddafi, or rather, perhaps, given, not that Gaddafi was a saint, but there were serious improvements made in Libya, and now it's back to open air slave markets.
Mm-hmm. No, it's shameful, but when you talk about why they're not doing this or why they're trying to go to space, they're not trying to go. They're militarizing space on the next level. That's all that's going on. I can promise you that this is just an extension of what they've done in the 80s. And really, even with this talk of leaving Afghanistan, what are you going to do? You're going to get rid of the combat troops. You're going to leave the high command there. You're going to allow the mercenaries to be there. And then you're going to rely on that open DARPA network you created by literally taking the biometrics of entire populations in Afghanistan and Iraq. So that's really, that's the deal. Anytime I hear we're leaving Afghanistan, it seemed like Trump did want to get us out of Syria, did want to get us out of Afghanistan. But when push came to shove, the military-industrial complex is in total control. And you're never going to get there by employing people like John, I want to bomb everything Bolton, or James, let's get him with a drone strike Mattis. It just doesn't happen that way. So, that should have been the first thing that the supposed, MAGA crowd or, Trumpers that thought underground superheroes were going to take over should have demanded. Let's get a cabinet in there that is anti-war. Let's get somebody like Rand Paul as Secretary of State, but these are things that we don't see on either side of the spectrum. And that really speaks to how much of a uniparty we already have under this predator class military media industrial complex.
Well, you've talked about it a whole bunch, Jason. The only reason that Guantanamo Bay got left open under Donald Trump was a hardcore propaganda effort, right? They allowed Guantanamo Bay to continue existing because they sold the people that originally wanted it closed on the idea that, we're going to put all the war criminals there, right?
We got John McCain there!
Right,
oh!
Right, without even using the term war criminal, just deep state cabal, right? and somehow the use of torture and all of that is justified if it's against someone you don't like, which creates this larger issue with the whole idea of this, left-right paradigm, because like you're saying, it's all the same shit rolling down the same creek.
That's right. And that's so important because it did legitimize Gitmo. It's like, we're finally going to get these big war criminals in there. And I'm like, guys, torture is bad. Secret prisons are bad. They are not legitimate no matter who is in them. We need transparency. Don't you see? This led us to the road of watching Julian Assange being dragged out of an Ecuadorian embassy. He should have never been in the first place. And then fast forward 2 years to Twilight Zone style, where they've got him in a plastic box at his trial. I mean, this is madness. And unfortunately, I think there's just such a large segment of the general populace who no longer has the ability to critically think for themselves, because the celebritard infotainment culture that has just projected these talking points that have no basis in reality, whether it be on the war on terror or now, stay safe, together, stay alone together, all these things that they've been bombarded with, they can no longer think for themselves, and they really just take hold in whatever media establishment they lean towards. So do I like Rachel Maddow or do I like Sean Hannity? And there's not much difference, believe it or not. And they're all promoting that we need to remain in this war on terror in the Middle East. We need to remain dominant, and we know where that's got us. It's got us to a point where that same military industrial complex, that same track trace database society has now been turned on us in this country and in Western countries all over the world.
Well, why do you think the troops are coming home from Afghanistan? We have
They're
more.
not.
No, I know that, but we have more troops literally deployed in a war zone in Washington D.C. than we do in Afghanistan right now, publicly at least.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Right. So if they do a drawdown, where do you think those troops are going to go? Because they're not going home.
I don't believe they're going home either, but I think it gives them a nice little PR spectacle. Think about it. They chose 9/11, the 20th anniversary, that you'll see Bill Clinton and Barack Obama and George Bush stand together with Joe Biden and say it's time to get out. And it'll be all propaganda. And again, they'll aggrandize those figures while demonizing Trump. And again, Trump's no saint. I'm not on a MAGA train, but at least he spoke out just the tiniest bit. At least the military had to lie to him when he thought he was getting out of Afghanistan. Still no nuts on Duma. Still, he sat out there for 2 weeks, said we were getting out of Syria. And look, we had that non-attack in Duma. He never stepped up to the plate, never told the truth, didn't pardon Julian, didn't pardon Snowden. There's so many things we can keep going on. Again, there are no superheroes. When you wake up in the morning and you go into the bathroom and you start your day, that's it. You're the guy. You're the girl. You got to get moving. So, that's why I love the fact that we do have all these whistleblowers getting together. I would even encourage, a lot of those are modern whistleblowers, people to remember Hepting versus AT&T and private workers like Mark Klein that were blowing the whistle in the 90s on the secret server rooms in all of the major telecommunication companies when they were taking all of our data even then. We knew about it then, folks. It didn't take Snowden to tell us that we were all being spied on. So the more people can educate themselves and the more people that can support these events. And how do people support these events other than just logging on and watching and sharing the links?
Well, I just wanted to highlight a site that if you don't know much about this stuff, and I was sitting here listening to Jason and I was thinking, I haven't thought about that, and I haven't thought about this, and I'd really like to know more. There's a little website. It's on Medium, which is the blogging site, and it's called medium.com/elephants in the room. That's elephants with an S, and it's meant to be really short, simple guides. If you've got a friend or a cousin or a family member who doesn't, or a young person in your house who doesn't really understand what's going on in the world, you might want to introduce them to it. It's easy to read and it's written in language that isn't all, high flown like some of these books that you get. You don't even know what the guy's talking about because they're using so much jargon. So that may be helpful to people. And I must declare a conflict of interest because my husband runs that blog. So, but we're not making any money out of it, and there's no advertising or anything that we're.
But Deepa, how do people support you financially? Because we know that unfortunately, without monetary support, it's hard to move the wheels and levers of justice. Unfortunately, you were talking about how do we go after these criminals? Often lawfare and civil suits are really the only way to get these monsters in court and see discovery in many cases.
Sorry,
No, you're fine.
I've got a 6-year-old who's
all
having a
of us, don't
birthday
worry.
party in 2 weeks' time, and she's so excited. Probably all the discussions are always about party bags. Well, firstly, this festival is a labor of love. So everybody who's contributing to it, from the tech geniuses who've created the infrastructure it's going on, through to the people who are managing not the Zoom, but the other feeds and things, and the contributors. It's all, free of charge. I'm not charging anything for my time, obviously. Shouldn't, because again, this is a labor of love. It's a labor of solidarity, because one of the things the festival's trying to do, and a lot of people said to me when I was thinking about this over the last few weeks, they said to me, why don't you do it over 3 or 4 days so people have a chance to listen and digest stuff? And that's a really, really important idea, that will give people time to to absorb this. But I also think there is a time and a place to have a show of strength. And I think this festival is just that. It's saying, here we are, we're all, we might be doing different things. Somebody's working on race, somebody else is working on class issues, somebody else is working on war, and somebody else is working in journalism. But we're all together because we recognize that the system is so corrupt and so flawed that it needs to be fundamentally overhauled. You can't just tinker at the edges. You have to fundamentally change how we engage with the rest of the world, especially when we live in, I live in, what is it, the 6th richest country in the world, and we have people queuing at food banks, including our nurses, and we have children going hungry and not being able to afford a midday meal while Boris Johnson and his cronies are creaming off millions of pounds of money, and he spends a few $100,000 redecorating his sitting room. I mean, it's just atrocious. It's wrong. And you know what's really wrong about this is that they're trying to make everything that is legal illegal. So, for example, what Julian did was legal. And oh no, Espionage Act, here we come after you. Oh no, we're going to extradite you. And everything that's completely wrong and illegal, for example, raping, murdering, torturing, policemen being able to do that to ordinary citizens in the course of duty. And it's now been made a law in Britain. I mean, this is just atrocious.
I was actually about to ask you about that, if you guys have seen or had any reports come out, because I haven't heard of any, that's why, but I'm over here in the U.S., because you guys recently passed that bill that gave, I believe it was almost 19 different government agencies complete immunity from all crimes, as long as those crimes are in the financial interest of the United Kingdom. And that's something, so has there been any whistleblowers or anything about what's happened there?
So, well, that we all know that's wrong and that's illegal, and it's only been passed because there is a Conservative government in power, which is full of cronies and which has been in power for 10 years. And in the opposition, we have another Tory in Labour clothing, which is Keir Starmer, who's essentially willing to privatize everything, willing to send the military everywhere, talking about, raising your British flag everywhere. I mean, this guy is a waste of space, right? And these two guys, these kinds of people are running our country. And then on the other hand, we have an inquiry happening right now, which is the Spy Cops inquiry, where lots of people, whether they were environmental activists, whether they were ordinary, members of the public organizing in a little left group, absolutely no danger to the rest of us. All of these people were spied on for years and years. And some of these men had children with these women, married them, and then suddenly disappeared from their lives. It was just absolutely horrific. And all of a sudden now they're trying to give them immunity too. And then they're having this overseas operations bill where they're trying to give us immunity for crimes we committed abroad. These are all illegal things. And they're trying to pretend they're illegal.
In the UK, you had someone put forward, to stop the bill, that got rejected. And then you had people put forward amendments outlawing murder, outlawing rape, outlawing child sex trafficking, outlawing prostitution. And the UK government shot every one of those amendments on that bill down.
I mean, you just can't make it up, can you? You just live in this bizarre world where the Joe Bidens and the Keir Starmers and the Boris Johnsons control everything. And it's time for us to speak up. And it's time for us to get together and stop hanging on to the phony left. The Alexandria Ocasio-Cortezes and the Owen Jones of this world. We just got to, we've got to look past them and look at what we can really do. Organizing the left and stop squabbling with each other and just get on with it.
Well, that's why I think Jason's event, just literally getting a Mother's Day festival going, getting people together. I think he's even going to have a food truck there from the stream he did last night.
Well, what we're going to do is, listen, man, I'm going big. And again, it shouldn't be a revolutionary act to have a barbecue with your neighbors, your friends, your family, and the community. It's wild to me it's come to that, but that's where we're at, right? It's 2021. Like you said, up is down, down is up, illegal is legal, legal is no longer, there. Like, you can't. Espionage Act, my ass. We all know this. You know, it's just like you look at the counterintelligence document 2020 to 2022 under Trump. Public disclosure organizations are now Al-Qaeda and ISIS and North Korea, ideologically motivated individuals. And we saw that go into hyperspace after, the quote unquote insurrection on January 6th. And now they're looking to expand their powers there as well to people that didn't even go inside. So, we see Nick Fuentes, who I'm no fan of, on a no-fly list. The guy should be able to fly. These are scary things that are happening right now. And we now have, by the way, it's up. I want to show people this. It's in its infancy. And right after I leave here, which is the next thing, I'm going to be taking my nieces over to the park so they can enjoy a nice little day, nice little Saturday. But peopleforpicnics.com is the website. And we're just asking you to come on down and enjoy a picnic. I'm going to be flipping the burgers. It's a gorgeous area, baseball fields, soccer fields, a park for your kids, a skate park there. It's really a nice little place in my new community. And we're going to show people that the state has no right to put their boots on our necks. And hopefully we can find other like-minded people, get them involved with their city council, with their school boards, with local government, and into these larger issues of surveillance, freedom of speech, obviously what's happening with Julian Assange, and obviously what's happening to American citizens and global citizens around the world by their oppressive governments that, make no mistake, are colluding with one another. Guys, that is going to do it for me. Deepa, I wish you the best. I am going to be tuning in next week, at least sometime through the day, and hopefully maybe even covering some of the speeches, because you got a great lineup. And of course, Andrew, extremely proud of what you did over on Tucker Carlson. I'm not sure if we've talked on the air since then, but you did a great job there. Misty, a pleasure as always. Guys, I'll see you on the flip side.
Thanks, Burmis.
Later.
Bye, Jason.
So,
Sorry,
you're fine.
I don't know how to make.
I love that your daughter's back there. She's so cute. Hi. Hi.
So there's actually something crazy going on in the UK that I didn't find out about until I was listening to some weird London Live stuff. And right now the UK in downtown London has put up like roadblocks essentially all across the city. And it's supposed to be a way to reduce urban traffic. But literally what they've done in the cities is essentially stuff out small businesses to where most of the places you can't drive are within small business zones, and then have begun straight just writing people fines as they go about their day driving through a regular city street. It's like skyrocketed emissions. I think travel time is up like 77% or some crazy number. And so I just think that's absolutely insane. And the mayor there is walking around like nothing happened. Like he didn't literally close down by force half of the city and then use cameras to detect if someone's trying to drive to their house. So the situation in the UK right now is like, it's past the boiling point, in my opinion.
What are you talking about? I don't know about these roadblocks.
I'll pull up the London Live thing. Apparently there's like reduced travel zones inside of London now, to where they put up like planters and do not drive signs all over the city. Let me go grab some.
Oh, I've got to log into Action for Assange to know what happens outside my front door. I'm really sorry. I haven't been to central London in ages, and because it's so expensive to go into central London nowadays, because they've got, rightly, they've got a congestion charge and a toxicity charge to prevent people with, polluting the place. But on the other hand, it's become so expensive that, it's not like public transport is cheap. And it's not like America, where we don't have public transport in some parts of America where you need to use your car. So I can understand this idea that, okay, we have lots of public transport, so you should use the public transport too. But on the other hand, sometimes when you're going with kids, you need to put them in the back of a car and take them somewhere, because it's so much hassle getting onto a train, etc., if you're disabled or whatever else. And yeah.
No, can you imagine trying to like, especially with little kids, like a stroller and all that, like trying to drag all that stuff to a train and then find, no, like that's just such a hassle. You're right. Like driving is, especially as like a parent, can be, the only way to stay sane.
Yeah, especially if an escalator's out of order, or you just there are situations where it's hard if you have any mobility problems to get in and out, and to make it so expensive that ordinary people can't afford to go into central London. You have to be really wealthy or live right in zone 1 and 2, which is like the most central part of London.
Well, these are actually affecting the boroughs, so they're calling them low traffic neighborhoods, LTNs. And this is in October 2020. The UK's Transportation Secretary Grant Shapps told London's borough councils that he was not prepared to tolerate the badly designed road closures and new cycle lanes that were imposed by these sweeping changes in the entire community. LNTs, which are characterized by giant planter pots and bollards strategically placed on the roads in residential neighborhoods to restrict or block traffic, have been a particular sticking point for residents. Have you heard?
Sorry, I get you now.
Yeah. Have you been affected by the LNTs at all?
Well, I know that there is, just by Russell Square, where all the universities are, they've changed all the streets into one-way streets and closed off certain areas. Now, the idea behind pedestrianizing something, making it easy and friendly to ordinary people who are walking around, is a great idea. But the way they've done it is really terrible, because they've closed off you either get stuck in a traffic jam for ages, or you have to fly over something. You can't get anywhere in a reasonable amount of time in certain parts of central London. Can you still hear me?
The DC's set up in a similar way, where it's fucking impossible to get around unless you know every little detail of the cities. I just wanted to bounce the LNT question off of you, because I had heard about it like a week and a half ago and hadn't had a chance to ask any UK people about it yet.
Sorry, that's the first I've heard of it. That's crazy.
Yeah, and it's literally like snuffing out small business. Like, you are not allowed to drive in these zones, or you get I want to say it's £100 fine for the first violation, and it goes up from there. But that's a whole different story. I was just seeing if you knew anything about that.
I think with the lockdown, the way in which small businesses have been destroyed by, this is COVID-19 is a serious pandemic, and I've got family in India. The privatization of healthcare in India and the fact that we can't get basic oxygen, etc., is a worry to everybody, and it's the worry in the UK because the NHS has been so badly privatized through the back door, and so it just can't cope. But on the other hand, the way they've done the lockdowns, firstly not doing anything about it, then suddenly locking it down, and not giving any support to small businesses and allowing big companies to prey on them, and essentially who are the people making money? It's the big supermarkets, it's the Amazons of this world, who are able to just, kind of extract wealth from everybody else and just...
It's incredibly exploitative. It's like a colonizer mindset, and they really, it's become, it's apparent. Like all of this stuff is so arbitrary. And they don't want, like Nancy Pelosi is going to get her hair done and there's a bunch of Democrats flying to Hawaii, but you can't hug your grandma. Like, that's ridiculous, like, you can just tell that it's a power grab. If it was actually about health, come on, they would have taken care of it. Like,
well, they wouldn't give out donuts if it was about health. You don't get a
remember when Joe Biden promised everybody 3 masks during the campaign? Did you ever get your 3 masks? Because I don't know anybody that got their 3 masks. He's going to send everybody 3 masks. Like, that's going to fucking do something. That's embarrassing that like somebody running for president, that's what they said. I'm going to give you 3 masks. Fuck off with your 3 masks. Sorry. Anyway, yeah, it's very clear that it was never about keeping anybody healthy. If they wanted people to be healthy, then we would have Medicare for all in the United States. The fact that we don't in the richest country in the world, You know what I'm saying?
on.
Like if it was ever about keeping people healthy, they would have passed healthcare. First of all, we wouldn't have even been needed to have that conversation if they actually gave a shit about health.
Well,
but then the fact that we can't even get healthcare, we can't even get a vote on the House floor. We can't even get progressives to kind of fight for a vote on the House floor for Medicare for all in the middle of a pandemic in the United States of America in the year 2021. Your country is broken. Period.
Well, the more nefarious thing, right? Because we did get a single payer healthcare system. Most people just don't realize it. You just have to call it coronavirus. Donald Trump is the greatest socialist president of the United States that's ever existed. And what happens, right? So millions of people lost their jobs because of lockdowns that are still ongoing in this country. They don't have health insurance anymore. They go to the hospital for something. The hospital writes it up as coronavirus because that's the only way that they're going to get paid. Like, oh, you got into a motorcycle accident and don't have the right insurance? Well, you had coronavirus. Now we can fix your broken arm. And that's another way that they've been able to pump up and up and up and up the numbers. And it's fucking crazy because instead of just giving healthcare, like I'm not even a fan of centralized healthcare through a government. Like I have other ideas on how to get it, but the fact that they wouldn't even do that and it's only specifically to fund coronavirus is the nuts part. But so one of the cool things, I don't know if you heard about this, Deepa, and I ramble about it a whole bunch, but the University of Chicago has found out through multiple, I want to say at least 9, if not more departments, that smoking THC or CBD or ingesting it, like marijuana, directly combats coronavirus. It stops the cell replication, stops cell entry, and boosts the immune system.
That's something worth spreading around, eh?
Right. I'll send you the study because it's just nuts. Like literally as a planet, we could just smoke weed and not worry about coronavirus. Like it's the.
Can you imagine getting all our grandparents, smoking?
That would be amazing. But I have to tell you, I feel pretty safe. You guys.
I've never smoked a joint, and now I have an excuse. I was always this goody at school,
I would
never did anything, and now it's like, yeah.
Now it saves the world. And the other thing, right? It's still a Schedule 1. They say that there's no medical applications when the University of Chicago proved that it's could potentially be the largest saver of lives. So
I think, I'm sorry, go on.
Oh, no, go ahead. I
was just going to go off on a complete tangent. Go on. You go.
I was just going to ask you about Craig Murray and how the situation's kind of escalating out there, because we've seen them step up the pressure on him, essentially trying to silence him through legal fare. So I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit and give your opinion of the situation.
Yeah, Craig's. It's difficult to say anything about Craig's case because I'm
sorry. Could you talk about some of the facts of the case?
What I can tell you is that Craig's being sentenced on the 7th of May, which is Friday. So it'd be really good if lots of people dialed into that and bore witness, because it is awful to see that, some of the things that were said in relation to Craig's case is how much other journalists had also covered the case, Alex Salmond's case, in far greater detail. It's quite interesting to reflect on why they decided to go after Craig rather than everybody else. So that's one thing. The other thing is to see, here's a man, he's got a 2-month-old baby, and I'm really, and he's got serious health conditions. So it'd be really interesting to see how that sentencing works. I'm pretty sure Craig's going to appeal the decision. So we'll see where that goes.
I can't believe how hard they're going after him. I mean, I can, but it's awful to watch. It's really, truly terrible to watch. I mean, because he seems like just such a cool, like just decent human being. And the way that they are railroading him is awful to watch.
Yeah, and he's always been somebody who's not although he's this posh, well-educated person, he's also able to scrutinize those who come from his class much more seriously, I mean, I don't know if he's actually posh, but you look at Craig and you see this ambassador, somebody who's traveled in a number of countries, been in powerful places, and he could have easily sat within the system, looked at that torture in Uzbekistan, and staged them, and not spoken up about it. And he chose to really put his life on the line in order to be able to say that. And it's a shame that he was trying to be accredited as a journalist because his blog has got 100,000 followers or something like that, and it took a long time for his accreditation to even come through. I don't know if it's through yet. And this kind of thing makes you wonder why you would expect people like the trade unions, people like the left of the country to get behind Craig. But I think a lot of people are not paying attention to the case, and these things happen in the background, and then Prince Philip or somebody dies, and this is one of these guys who's terribly racist, terribly sexist, and has literally, he and his family leech off this country every single day, and everywhere everybody's talking about him, and you just wonder what's going on.
So we're going to go through an article later about Craig Murray actually going to testify in Spain against the CIA and UC Global, which we meant to get to last week. We just had a lot of really cool guests. But with his sentencing, like you said, taking place on the 7th, I'm worried that they're trying to use lawfare as a way to prevent him from being able to go to Spain to testify. And I don't know if maybe I'm just looking a little too much into the situation, but it just feels like his trial in the UK lines up too well with him supposed to be leaving in 2 weeks to go to Spain to testify against David Morales, the hopefully dead Sheldon Adelson, and CIA.
Well, it is really interesting that, Craig's hearing took place several months ago, and then it took months for the verdict to come through. And the timing of everything just does seem very odd. And of course, the fact that Craig was regularly reporting on Julian's trial is another thing which should have definitely made him a thorn in the side of the establishment. So, yeah. I mean, the fine right now. Sorry.
They mentioned that reporting in his indictment, where they talk about the fact that he was covering Julian Assange's court trial as part of the reason why he's such a prolific journalist and should be prosecuted in this case.
It's a bit like when they said, about Julian, that he's very resilient and he's got a lot of people who support him, and that's another reason why he should that's another reason why he should be extradited and shouldn't be given support and shouldn't be allowed out on bail. I mean, when that was one of the reasons that Vanessa Baraister and the CPS seemed to take into account when deciding the bail decision, that Julian had lots of supporters.
Yeah,
and you would think that
her words were fairness. She cited fairness to the United States.
Exactly. And you talk about this fairness, and this is the same judge who for months has been talking about not giving Julian's lawyers enough of an adjournment to look at the second superseding indictment, for example. And he was served it on the first day of the trial, of the hearings. And she says, Mr. Assange is in Belmarsh, and surely you should be wanting to get him out of there. And then all of a sudden, now that the hearings are over, they said he won't extradite him. All of a sudden, she wants to be fair to the US. And this is what they did even in the hearings when the medical experts were talking. I was just so irritated when I heard the CPS's medical experts talking. And their argument was, yes, he's depressed, but hey, here in the US, we can give him lots of medication that will prevent him from committing suicide, because he's trapped in this small little 10x8 concrete box with a small hole to give him lunch. I mean, that's the kind
I love that they were all okay. So she's like, we can't send him to the US because it's so oppressive. Their prison system is so oppressive that he may actually kill himself. But the reason he got into the precarious mental state that he's in is because of the oppressive prison system that you've been subjecting him to for 2 years. And then she denied him bail. But wait, if this is about his mental health, then why wouldn't you let him out while this is all going through appeal? That makes no sense whatsoever. And she's like that. She talks out of both sides of her mouth. It's like she just desperately wants to kick the can down the road. You know, like I think that's the game plan. I mean, Julian already showed us that this was the plan, was to just tie him up in legal shit for, you know, however long that it takes. And I mean, they're doing just that. And it's terrifying. And again, I know that people say this all the time, everywhere, all the time. But if they do it to him, they will do it to you. There's nothing stopping them from doing this to anybody. And just the number of human rights abuses alone, the fact that he was spied on with conversations with his lawyers, and the fact that, I mean, just they give him a computer with the keys glued down. He can't even participate in his own defense. He can't, you know, do anything. All of these things, like like any one of them should have the case like set on fire and thrown out a window, you know. But here we are, still continuing. He's still in prison.
Yeah, they went 6 months, for Christ's sake. He went from March until September not being allowed to meet with his lawyers in preparation for the hearings that took place.
In preparation to go up against the United States government.
And he still
for 6 months. Yes, for 6 months couldn't meet with his lawyers. They gave him the computer the laptop they gave him had the keys glued down. That's fucking ridiculous. That's ridiculous. I mean, that would be ridiculous for any case, like any like random court case that, you know, a DUI case or whatever. That would be ridiculous. But no, this dude is going up against the United States government for espionage charges, and he's not going to be allowed to participate in his own defense. That's crazy. Like, that should concern everybody. You should be able to mount a legitimate defense. You should be able to conversate with your lawyers. You should be able to, you know, participate and be able to look through your legal documents. They don't even give him his legal documentation. It's absurd that this is being allowed. Like, then people are just walking around like it's a normal thing, and that's not normal. He should. I don't care what you think. Like, all of this crap. Like, who cares what happens to him? Like, people, the trolls on Twitter now, their big thing now is that he's anti-Semitic. First of all, that's fucking nonsense. That's like just ridiculous. I can't even, but it doesn't matter. Like, he could be the worst person on earth and you should be opposed to what's happening to him. Do you know what I'm saying? It's wrong. It's wrong, period. It doesn't matter how you look at it. It doesn't matter what you think of him. Take your emotional bullshit out of it and look at it like a grown ass adult. It's wrong, period. I don't know why that's so hard for people. I really do not know why that's so hard for people. It's terrifying that they're, able to get away with it.
It's because those people that are supposed to be adults just want to control the space weapons, right? No one actually, like, anyone that supports American politics at this point, to any extent, all they want is control of the space weapons. That's what they're arguing for. They want to be the ones that are able to assassinate Iranian scientists with space machine guns like Israel did. They want to drop kinetic weapons like someone did on fucking Beirut, because that wasn't a goddamn fertilizer explosion, right? So that's why the major people in the political process that are supposed to be anti-authoritarian and supposed to be like the banner wavers are literally just turning and running face. Like, you have Sarah Palin further to the left on this issue than fucking Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Bernie Sanders, or anyone in the Democratic Party short of Tulsi Gabbard.
We live in a cartoon, dude. Sarah Palin, if you would have told me 5 years ago that Sarah Palin would come to Julian Assange's defense before Bernie Sanders, I would have died laughing.
Right, because Sarah Palin was exposed. WikiLeaks published her emails in the 2008 election cycle.
And she still came to his defense before Bernie Sanders, before Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Before the man whose election heist was exposed while he was at the convention and did nothing. Like, a man who you could say benefited from WikiLeaks is silent, while a person that was literally dragged through the mud by them because it's journalism defends him.
It's just terribly sad, isn't it? It's just
it really is.
And I'm so glad you guys are here talking about it, because I see a few shows like this in Britain, and you guys are amazing. It's really wonderful and refreshing to hear you speak and to hear how much you know about so many different things, and you understand the connections between them. And I'm really glad to be here today.
Oh, we love having you.
We love you. Yeah, we love having you. Like, I would say you and Juan are probably probably my top 3 people just to talk to. And we talk to some pretty cool people.
Yeah, you do.
Right, like we have Ray McGovern on speed dial. Like I could message him like 45 minutes before we go on, like, hey, you want to hop in, Ray?
Grandpa Ray. I do love me some Grandpa Ray. He's amazing. That man is like, seriously, we've joked about the story time with Ray. He is like just a barrage of stories. He's got stories and stories. Like you could just sit down and just have story time with Grandpa Ray. And he could never tell the same story twice. It's so great.
Yeah. So Craig's facing, I forgot to say this, Craig's facing up to 2 years in prison and an unlimited fine. So we don't know.
Well, we'll get his fine taken care of. We will. Look what happened with Chelsea. When Chelsea got out, that was seriously, there have been times where, cause I'm like a very cynical person. It's very easy for me to lose hope. And then like something like that happens. And within like 36 hours, we have Chelsea Manning's fines paid off. It's like, oh, okay. It's not all bad. There are good people out there who are fighting, and that's nice. So we'll take care of his fines. Like, I hope he knows that. I hope, Craig Murray, if you're listening, we got you, dude. Whatever like we can do, we'll do it. You don't have to worry about your fines. I'm just more worried about him being sent to prison unjustifiably. Like it's just not that. Again, well, it's just not okay. What's happening?
In my opinion, it's to silence him. They can't have someone from that caste and that with that former position of authority and respect speak out. Right, and you see it with
it's silencing dissent. It's across. If you can see it, it's not just Craig Murray. It's not just Julian Assange. Look around you. Look at these anti-protest laws that are popping up. There's like 70 some odd anti-protest laws right now in like 34 different states in the United States of America. I have 4 right now in Ohio. Andrew and I have 4 right now in Ohio. There's 12 in Oklahoma.
Directly impact our ability to organize the vigil.
Yes,
because if they
that's your First Amendment, fam. Pay attention. What's happening is we've been trying to warn you. They have been systematically destroying the First Amendment in broad daylight for decades, and nobody's paying attention. And you need to wake up. You're losing it. You are losing it. You are this close to losing it all. And once you can't speak up, once you can't dissent, once you can't fight back, protest, redress your grievances, like once that's taken away, you don't get that back. Like that was hard fought to get it. And then to give it away and then have to fight for it again. Come on. You cannot let that happen. We cannot let that happen. We have to like make sure that doesn't happen. That's not up for debate. Like this is something that we see it every time. After 9/11 and the Patriot Act, how many rights did we lose? We haven't gotten any of those back. And this is not just, this is not like taking your shoes off when you walk into an airport. This is the First Amendment. This is your right to speech. This is your right to know, to learn, to think. And they're taking it away little by little. And some of you are applauding it. It's really weird.
And it's gone as far as to now openly talk on like left news shows about drone striking U.S. citizens inside the U.S. without a trial. Like the stuff that Daniel Hale exposed with the drone war and the baseball card program is now being turned on domestic citizens in a clandestine fashion.
Yes. I mean, you can see there was the drone footage. I think it was in, I don't remember where it was. But it was at like a Black Lives Matter protest somewhere. And there's drone footage, and they weren't just monitoring the protests. They were monitoring the neighbors. Like you can see they're like zooming in on some lady and her kid in their backyard by their garage. And they zoom in on a jogger, and that's what they're doing to you. It's that you are being surveilled. And this is what frightens me, is that they know literally everything there is to know about you. Everything. They know what brand of cereal you like, what kind of shoes you wear, where you grocery shop, where your kids go to school, what kind of car you drive, how many times you stop for gas. They know everything, and you don't know jack shit about what they're doing. And they're trying to silence anybody who dares to expose them and to expose their criminality. And y'all, it's like unmatched evilness. And they have complete we have no ability to hold them accountable at all. And we're like handing over, like happily, our last final grasp of being able to do that in any way. And it's really sad. We are seriously being like zombie walked into our own demise, and it sucks to watch.
The other scary thing is they know all of our names and we don't know theirs. We don't know the name of the person that's flying that drone over these cities. We don't know the name of the people sitting inside of U.S. fusion centers that are strategically coordinating between intelligence and police to get Neera Tanden's idea of a hybrid military police force put into action. Like, we don't know the names of the people who perpetrated the fraud of Russiagate, right? That allowed Julian to be smeared essentially one last great time to drag him into the embassy. But they know us, and they know
everything. They know everything. They have every text, every email. They listen to your phone calls. They know everything, and there are cameras everywhere, and they're monitoring everything you do, everything you say. Wave to the NSA agent who's probably listening to this right now. And they can do whatever they want, whenever they want. There's no accountability, and they've proven that. Look at what they're doing. We just talked about this earlier with the COVID stuff. Like, the only billionaires are raking money hand over fist while people literally starve to death. It's fucked up, and it's really bizarre to me that that's something that it seems like people are just like, oh yeah, that's just the way things work. And that's weird to me. That should never just be the way things work. That's not okay. Like, Bill Gates does not deserve all that money. He didn't do anything to earn all of that money. Elon Musk didn't do anything to earn all that money. Jeff Bezos did not do anything to earn all that money. They had great ideas. Sure, okay, I'm okay with them like being compensated for having great ideas or whatever, but you do not reach that level of wealth without being an absolute psychopath, willing to exploit and abuse and hurt and step on whoever it takes. It's just not possible. And so those are not good people. And, there should be absolutely a mass movement to make sure that doesn't happen. That shouldn't be acceptable in any civilized society ever. There are kids, literally kids, who are going to go to bed tonight starving, hungry, not knowing if they're going to get to eat tomorrow. And Jeff Bezos gets to have all that money to himself and have a house with like 25 bathrooms. No, that's not okay. That's ridiculous. Like, it's weird to me, grown adults.
Well,
they're like, yeah, okay.
to see kind of a modern retelling of what we're going through, I would point everybody back to Barack Obama's 2019 Nelson Mandela Day speech in South Africa, where he literally laid out what he called the new aristocracy. And they are bound by no nation, they care about no country, and they will pay bribes, kill, and change laws as necessary to continue their plans. That's not word for word, but that's literally almost word for word for what Obama says at a speech against apartheid. And that's how open and brazen this corruption has become, and it's because people haven't stood up to hold them accountable.
Yeah, we let it happen. We really do just let it happen. It's not okay. And I think it's because they've managed, like, the propaganda is very good and everybody just thinks that they're a temporarily, inconvenienced billionaire, like, oh, if I just work hard enough, I could be the next Bill Gates. And no, you can't. No, you can't. No, you can't. And it's because they have managed to exploit the system that it refuses to allow anybody up to come up behind them. They extract everything for themselves. And so that circle of opportunity shrinks so that there is no opportunity. And instead we should be, it's completely backwards. And it's because we elevate the worst among us to to positions of power. That's what happens. We applaud and celebrate the absolute worst among us. Like, we look at Bill Gates as a success story. We look at Jeff Bezos as a success story. That's not a success to me. That's disgusting. That is a failure of the system. And that, to me, those are psychopaths. If you look at what they've had to do and the methods that they have taken and the exploitation, look at Jeff Bezos and the Amazon employees, and the way that they're treated, having to pee in bottles and having to work, 14, 16-hour days running through a warehouse. And if they, don't fulfill their quota or whatever, they could get fired, or what. It's nonsense. And
but then they vote against a union. Those same people that are pissing in bottles, breaking their ankles to fill packages. If it was a
but
fair
that's because
election.
the propaganda is very effective, Andrew. You more than anybody should know that. You know how propaganda works, and they're very, very, very good at it. They are, and that's what we're up against. That really is what we're up against, and that's where we really need to start thinking, because that, I say it all the time, narrative control, like the narrative management of things, that is the fight. That's the fight, because we have to be able to show people another way, and we can't do that without the ability to speak and without the ability to disseminate information. And so it's terrifying to me that we're handing over control of that, but they're very good at this propaganda. And that is the battle. That's it right there. Front lines. That is, and it affects everything else. The propaganda affects literally everything else you want to do. If you're an environmentalist, okay, let's just take healthcare, for example. We know there's a whistleblower, I think his name's like Wendell Porter or something, who came out and said, listen, I used to write the propaganda for the health insurance companies. We spent tons of money and decades misinforming the American people about Medicare for all. And that's what you're up against. That affects everything else. If you want healthcare, then you're going to have to fight that fight first. You're going to have to fight the narrative control, because that's a huge part of why we don't have healthcare right now, because they completely convinced the American people to believe something against their own interests. And and it worked brilliantly. They're so good at it. And we're bombarded with it all the time. So that really is the crux of everything else, in my opinion. And whatever, you can disagree with me, but I think I'm right.
I think you are right. I think, propaganda and how, the lies, the half-truths, the smears, the misleading statements, that's how they gain control over resources. And that's how they make you think you have some say over these things. And actually, all you're doing is filling their pockets and working for them. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Misty. I just wanted to also just say that if you want to read a little bit about propaganda and also about some of the things Misty's talking about, including how billionaires become rich, because all of us are taught exactly as Misty said, that if you work hard, if you're good at school, you work really hard, and you keep your head down, you may one day be allowed to become like one of them. And often the people who are safeguarding these people's rights are people like us. We're the ones who are the gatekeepers, who keep people who are really frustrated away from these big rich people who are exploiting all of us. So it's on the blog, by the way. Just sorry to plug the blog again, but I think there's a really nice, easy reading thing.
Can you text me that link and I'll put it out in the chat for the white elephant, or the elephant in the room?
Sure.
It's elephants in the room.
Well, I tried to find it.
www.medium.com/elephants in the room.
There it is.
Elephants with an F.
I want to give a shout out to another person I consider a superhero, and that's Alex Hills. She's still going. For those of you who don't know, Alex Hills is literally one of the most badass global organizers in the Free Assange movement. And
nobody does it better, in my opinion. She's amazing.
And she picked up the banner of doing it decentralized as soon as we started to try, and was doing it before, and was part of the reason on why I got inspired with her Candles for Assange events. So I just want to run through these real quick with everyone. These are just dates coming up. We have May 3rd, World Press Freedom Day, and then later this month, next month, I guess this month now, the High Court's appeal, the U.S. government's appeal to the High Court. January 6th, or June 26th is Assange Week. We have July 3rd as Julian's 50th birthday, July 25th as the 11th anniversary of the Afghan and Iraq War Diaries. We have October 4th as the 15th year of WikiLeaks, October 22nd as the 11th year of the Iraq war logs. November 1st through the 12th is COP26. Not sure what that is. And then we have the 11-year.
It's an environmental thing.
Okay. But she has a list, right? So people still haven't stopped. May 3rd, we have Brisbane going on. We also have Barcelona, Rome, Brisbane back on the 21st as well.
I think a lot of these places are doing either bi-weekly or some of them are even weekly. Some are monthly. I know, I think Brisbane's weekly. Yeah. They're pretty regular, I think. So, and they're also doing the home run for Julian, or the home run for Julian? Something, the tour with his dad right now. They're going to be coming to the States actually next month. So yeah, I'm excited for that.
Yeah. We also.
But yeah, you can probably just follow all that stuff on Alex's Twitter. Like if you guys want to like follow all of the global events all the time, that is your girl. That is your girl. She has your hookup on all things, like all global events, Assange, all of them. Like she's very good at, she has contacts with everybody. She makes sure to keep in touch with everybody. She's very organized. I don't know how she does it. And she has a great memory too. Like we can just like randomly start talking about it and she can just rattle off events from memory. I don't know. She's some kind of superhero. But I know, Deepa, you have to go. So I want to just give you another chance to plug the event because seriously, guys, it's going to be so awesome. The list of speakers is seriously incredible. So yeah, just tell us one more time where they can find the website and your Twitter and all that good stuff so everybody can make sure that they keep up with the schedule and all that stuff for the event.
Okay, so the website's www.whistleblowingfest.org, that is. That's www.whistleblowingfest.org. We're going to have sessions which include when the criminals control the law, and I know Misty will have a lot to say about that. We're going to have a discussion of war and war crimes with people like David McBride, who's the Aussie Defence Forces whistleblower. We're going to have lobbying and lawfare and how, just what you were talking about, taking down those people who are making obvious what's really going on in the world. We're going to have sessions on willful blindness and how people in positions of power are able to close their eyes to the kind of harm that's going on in the world. We're going to have a discussion of sex, race, and class. And we're going to have Selma James, who founded the Wages for Housework campaign, a huge women's rights activist, very interested in social justice. We're also going to have Margaret Prescott. I think she's on Sojourner Truth, the show, and that's the show she runs, and she's supportive of the Poor People's Movement, huge activist in America. We're going to have a discussion of torture with Mohamedou Ould-Slahi and Andy Worthington and Marjorie Cohn. We're going to have a discussion of the First Amendment, the kind of issues we've talked about today, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, with Martin Garbus, who's also had connections to the Daniel Ellsberg case. And then we're going to have interviews with people like John Pilger and Nancy Hollander, discussion with Jonathan Cook about how the media really works. And I'd like to plug this fantastic session that we have lined up with Nikki Hager, the New Zealand journalist, which is about why leaks are necessary and why you need whistleblowers to do your work in investigative journalism. Because one of the things that the US prosecution tried to do very strongly in Julian's case was to say that this is not what real journalists do. That, what Julian was doing was like going into your house and stealing something from your house, and that it's criminal activity when he was, interacting with Chelsea, for example. But Nikki Hager is going to talk about, not about the Assange case, but more generally about what investigative journalists really do. We're also going to have this really cool session, which I'm quite looking forward to, which is on creativity and dissent, and how artists speak truth to power with their art. And in this session, we're going to have a guy called Davide Dormino, whom you may remember. He's the guy who did the 3 statues. So that he's going to be there, and also Christina Navaretti, who's she was in Pinochet's concentration camps in Chile, and she's going to talk about how they, the prisoners, kept together and restored each other's dignity through little pieces of art. For example, doing a carving on a nut and presenting it to somebody on a birthday, or cheering each other up when people were feeling down and that kind of thing. We're having this amazing artist by the name of Peter Kennard, who's done a lot of work around dissent. And we're going to have Clara Lopez Rubio and John Russell Johns. Very interesting, because he talks about how higher education and critical education and art have been kind of done in by how universities have become more and more neoliberal and right-wing, and how money's gone out of art courses, and how that's really affecting how people are able to express their ideas. So I'm just trying to think who else is probably on. I should have.
I'm gonna pull the list actually up on the screen here real quick. We won't be able to see it, but everyone.
It's such an amazing
just to
list of
scroll through, because
speakers.
Somerset Bean is one of the speakers that's going to be there. Victor, who's a common or a regular here on the Vigils, will be there.
Yeah,
Kathy
Victor's
Bogan,
great.
Nathan Fuller, who I'm super excited that he's coming out. So I'm still go. You guys have hundreds of guests. Lisa Johnstone. I'm just trying to name off the names that I know off the top of my head. And this is incredible. Like, you don't.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot. Seriously, you guys. It's seriously, it's the who's who of cool people in my world anyway. Like, these are all like amazing. And there are some controversial ones, like Deepa said, that you may or may not like agree with all the time. But that's what makes it great. Like, there's an opportunity to like really hear other viewpoints and ideas and learn and grow. And that's the way you should always approach anything. But yeah, like even the people who I'm like, okay, I don't really, like, it's still like they're interesting, thoughtful people. So yeah, I mean,
courageous people, really.
Yes.
For example, people may think Chris Williamson or George Galloway or some of these other people are not necessarily their cup of tea, but these are the people who. Chris was the first person to put in a motion into Parliament in support of Julian. George Galloway used on his show. You can go and call in and talk about Julian, and he knows about what's really going on. So it's really
he's a long-time Julian supporter. He's always been very vocal and very
and very
clear.
anti-war.
He's one of the few people that I'm sad we haven't had on the Vigil yet. Because
he's
we've reached out
amazing,
to him
and
on.
Again, I don't always agree with everything that he says, but I do not doubt for 1 second that he is an honest actor. Not for 1 second. I think he is a genuine person who is just expressing his own ideas, and you're free to disagree with him. And like, I think he welcomes dialogue, and those are my people. Like, anybody who comes at me in an honest way, in a truthful way, I can like have a conversation with those people. So even if you disagree with someone, you should always at least try to look and see where you can maybe learn from them, or just open your mind.
And can I just say one thing, which is that, you might think you're really interested in Assange, but you've got friends and family and, colleagues who are not really interested in Assange. This is not about Assange, this festival. It is about Assange, and it isn't, in the sense that we're going to talk about the issues rather than about Julian as an individual. And these are the issues that matter to most people, where if you're somebody who's from the Black community, or if you're a woman, if you're disabled.
To me, it just seems like a celebration of dissent and ideas and thought and conversation. Like it's really. I mean, that's what I'm really excited about, is that it really just does seem like an open celebration of dialogue, conversation, thoughts, and dissent, which is my favorite, because we have to. Oh, your little nugget is so cute.
I think I've got.
But thank you so much for joining us, Deepa.
Thank you very much.
I'll put the link in the chat before we go for.
Yeah, and I just tweeted it again. I'll keep tweeting it, because everybody needs to go.
And if you can encourage people to, or your friends and colleagues to attend, people who are not usually in our circles, that will be really nice, because that will help to change some of the, allow us to talk to them, because it's terrible to keep talking within your own little Twitter bubble or whatever. And it's really nice to talk to other people and hear their points of view, and maybe they say something that suddenly makes something click in your head. So that'd be really good. Thank you. And thanks
Yes,
for
thank you. We're really excited for it. Thanks for
tonight.
coming on to talk about it.
Cheers, guys. Bye. I'll
See
speak to you
ya.
offline. Bye.
Bye. Her little nugget is so cute.
Right.
Can't stand it.
It's she's the most adorable little thing. So Misty, do you want to talk about
So Andrew,
the billboards?
are we talking about the who to what? Oh, the billboards?
The billboards.
Yeah, it's the same update. I just need somebody tell me what to do. Seriously, I hate making decisions, especially decisions like this where it's not just as a decision for me. Like I'm probably making it a way bigger deal than it needs to be and putting way too much pressure on myself because I tend to do that. But yeah, I just need to finalize. Really, the only thing I'm super concerned about, because I think I have like crunched the numbers enough where I think we're best off to just get like one billboard in a really prime location. There are like different variations that you can get that maybe, but I don't, it's like splitting hairs. So that I don't think is like necessarily but I really just need like a finalized design. So I don't know if maybe we should put some up and let people vote on it or whatever. I did get some input from, I think it was the Committee to Defend Assange. There's so many Assange groups that I get them a little bit confused, but they were just talking about the one that they've been using in the UK right now. They were going to add a QR code to it, which makes sense in the UK because if you've seen the pictures, their billboards are like sidewalk level. Like it's like you're walking past them. For us in the United States, like some of our billboards are maybe more accessible, but for the most part, it's like you're driving by at 70 miles an hour on a highway, so a QR code really makes no sense and does us no good. So they were going to do that. And they also wanted the one that they're using is it's like a picture of somebody holding their phone and it has the collateral murder, like a collateral murder headline or whatever. And then it says, journalism is not a crime. And then below it says free Assange and maybe no extradition. I'm not sure. But they were just asking like the free Assange be bigger. I'm not entirely convinced that's even the design we should go with. I don't know if we should I think maybe including a picture of Julian and humanizing him again. Like, look, this is a person. Or should we, I don't know. Like it feels like a big decision. It's a lot. Like there's a lot of things we could do. Bean has offered to design whatever we want. Or we could just use something that's already on the website that, we can just kind of maybe even just tweak it a little bit to, so yeah, I just don't it's a lot of like pressure. I don't want to make the wrong call. And I know that, we kind of also should think about the area that it's going into and, what the target demographic is going to be in that area. Like I want to be smart about it. So yeah, I'm probably just putting way too much pressure on myself, but I would just like some input from some people before I go making a decision that big. So I'm pretty sure I already know like where it's going to go. I'm eyeballing locations near, I don't know if anybody really cares about this because if you're not from Columbus, it doesn't matter. But like there's an Easton exit for Easton Town Center, which is a huge shopping development center. It's like a really fancy schmancy place. There's another one called Polaris. A lot of traffic, lots and lots and lots of traffic. So I think those are probably locations we're going to go with. I just need to finalize design really. And just, the companies I've got all my questions answered. I just need design really is my big thing. So
we can get that figured out.
That's where we're at. Hopefully we can nail that down within the next couple of days. Getting everybody together for a meeting is damn near impossible. So it may just have to be like a series of group chats and whatever we can do just to get it done. Because frankly, I'm tired of thinking about it.
Yeah, getting it off your plate would definitely be helpful.
Yeah, so I would like to have a project off my plate, like have just a tiny bit of wiggle, just a little bit. Yeah, so that's where we're at. I feel like a therapy session.
Well, we all need one. at this point.
Seriously, that's what bitch is about, man. I'm telling you. That's why I started bitch. I'm not even kidding. And then somebody was mad at me because it's not like news. And last week we spent the entire time bitching about people who stalk me on Twitter. Well, that's the fucking point. Like, I thought the name of the show made that pretty clear. The point of this is a place where we can all bitch, whatever it is, whatever is bothering you, whatever's bothering me that day, whatever. Like, it doesn't always have to be serious and news and plans and solutions. And no, like, sometimes I just want to vent. So if that's not the show for you, move on. Christ, stop complaining about my bitching, like, it's not helping. I'm just going to make you like a topic of conversation next week. Come on.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's the best too.
Come on, man. Ugh.
So can we do the Neil Smeltzer interview? Because we've tried to do this for a while
Yes.
and haven't
Yeah,
had a
let's
chance.
do it. Let's do it.
Throw it up on the screen share real quick so that way all of us can read it too. Ooh. Bear with me for a second. I'm clicking as fast as I can. Boom. So we went over the first two slides in this already. What made the Special Rapporteur on Torture work on the Assange case and write a book about it. Do you want to go through these first two again, Misty, or do you want to jump to the ones we haven't talked about yet? You're muted, Misty.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
I'm muted because my damn microphone is constantly echoing. I don't know. Do you think we need to do a
I think it's worth it. Do you want to take these two? Because I read
that's
two
fine.
last time, and I'll pick the next couple up.
Yeah. Okay, so what made a Special Rapporteur on Torture work on the Assange case and write a book about it? So, and again, you guys know I've talked about this before. Nils Melzer is somebody that like really came at a good time for me personally. So I love this story anyway. When Julian Assange was still at the embassy in December 2018, his legal team actually reached out to my office. I remember it was just before Christmas. I saw this message pop up on my screen and I swiped it away immediately. I had this intuitive reaction. What does that guy want? He's a rapist, a narcissist, a hacker. This isn't serious. So I just discarded it. I have around 15 requests per day. I can do one. It's very routine for me to decide quickly. And I remember those negative emotions I had that I usually don't have. I realized that I had strong prejudice against Assange, even though it was my profession as a human rights expert to be objective. I started investigating further, scratching the surface of this case. The deeper I got into the case, the more dirt and contradictions came to the light. I also knew that I could not rely on information in the media and in the press because that's precisely the source that I had, or that had deceived me in the first place. To be objective, I had to go visit him in prison, and to be sure, I took not one medical doctor, but even two medical doctors with me who are independent from each other and are not employed by the UN. We spent 4 hours with Julian Assange. I spoke to him for 1 hour, and the forensic expert had 1 hour for a physical examination, and the psychiatrist did a 2-hour psychiatric examination. Each medical examination was done separately from the other, so they wouldn't influence each other. All three of us at the end compared our conclusions and agreed that he showed all the signs that are typical of victims of psychological torture. I must admit that I didn't expect such a clear result. I reported back to the involved governments by the end of May. I was convinced Julian Assange had been deliberately persecuted and kept in a legal limbo in Sweden, in the US, in the UK, and everywhere to put him under pressure and to make him crack. It was done very publicly in order to make an example of him, to scare other investigative journalists. The message was, if you expose our dirty secrets, this is what's going to happen to you, and no one can protect you. We can violate your rights every day the way that we want, and no one can do anything about it. That's what we've been saying. That's what I've been saying. He's the proverbial head on the stake. He is the, hey, if you fuck with us, this is what happens to you. It's scary.
They keep blaming him for escaping Swedish justice. Well, I think if he did anything, he escaped Swedish injustice. But the thing is this, even if that had been the case, in May 2019, he was in Belmarsh prison, and he is still there. And Sweden reopened the case. Now they had more than a year before the rape allegations expired. He was at their disposal for years. They were saying he's hiding in the embassy. We can't charge him. We can't charge him of a crime because we have to question him first. Now, when they could question him, they didn't question him, but closed the case for a lack of evidence without even questioning him. They didn't question him because they knew once they had questioned a suspect, you either have to charge him or dismiss the allegations. They knew that once once they questioned him, they would not have enough evidence to charge him. They thought, if we questioned him, we will have to drop the allegations against him and say he is innocent. But they didn't want to say that. They wanted to keep him artificially in limbo and, most importantly, discredited by these allegations. There is a clear evidence for this deliberate prosecution by the Swedish prosecutor, which I detail point by point in my book. I have read 6,000 pages of the investigative files in Sweden. And for those of you who don't know, we've talked about it a little bit. Melzer is actually fluent in Swedish. I think that's his native language.
Yes, it is. Yeah. It's his native language, and so he absolutely knows what those documents should look like and what they should say.
Yep. What do you think is going to happen to him now? Extradition has been denied by the British judge Vanessa Baraister. And then Melzer said, what has changed for Assange? Nothing. He's still in prison. He's still isolated, and is exactly what they want. No one wants to set him free. I think the judgment was very smart from their perspective. I was surprised how intelligently this decision serves the interests of these states, because what they are doing now is, if they had confirmed the extradition like everybody expected, people would have started questioning whether or not this is a fair trial. Assange's legal team would have immediately appealed the decision, and the British High Court would have discussed all these legal arguments put forward by Assange's defense. The charges are political offenses, the Espionage Act and the press freedom concerns, even the human rights violations in this case. All these things would have been addressed by the High Court, which is more independent than the magistrate court. Judge Baraister confirmed everything that the United States wanted except extradition. She established a legal precedent, and that legal precedent confirms that what Assange has done is espionage under the U.S. Espionage Act, and that it is a crime even in the United Kingdom under the Official Secrets Act, and that in both cases there is no public interest offense. There is no political offense exceptions for extradition. All these things are confirmed step by step. Only in the end, she said, we could extradite him, but we won't because we won't because the prospect of U.S. detention conditions would probably cause him to commit suicide, and that would be oppressive. But she passed by a precedent judgment established that you, as an investigative journalist, can be prosecuted in the future as spies simply for doing your job and informing the public about crimes of the powerful. Now that the U.S. has appealed this decision to the High Court, they can say, the judge in the first instance wrongly decided that our conditions of detention are inhumane, and they can give diplomatic assurance that they would not put him in special administrative measures. They will call it something else. And I'm going to repeat that. They will call it something else, but it will be the same. And they may also promise to give him access every 6 weeks to a special doctor or something. So they will argue that the only reason why the extradition was refused now has been removed, and that the High Court could agree that now they can extradite him because the United States has given guarantees removing the concerns of the magistrate court. That's one possibility. Alternatively, the High Court could also ask to look at the first proceedings, which were marked by many particular or procedural mistakes, and say that they cannot decide this case and have to send it back to the first instance for reconsideration, which means essentially doing a retrial. So now they have to do another extradition procedure from square one. And that will take another year or two. The U.S. is in no hurry to get Assange in prison in the U.S. They just want him in prison somewhere. And they want to break him down. And Melzer says, yes, of course. They hope at some point he will commit suicide or have a mental breakdown so that he'll have to be institutionalized in a closed psychiatric hospital. It's a possibility, or they will go back to the first instance, and the U.S. will come forward with new superseding indictments, so they'll keep Julian in a permanent cycle of proceedings for another 5 or 10 years. They can easily do that if they want. During the current proceedings, he should not be imprisoned in Belmarsh. Actually, At the most, he should be put under house arrest because he isn't serving any sentence. He is only being kept there so he can't escape extradition. If in the end there is extradition, Augusto Pinochet was also in extradition detention in the UK, but he was accommodated with a villa while under house arrest. Margaret Thatcher brought him whiskey, and he had unlimited visits. Let us be clear, there is absolutely no legal basis to keep Julian Assange in Belmarsh prison, and there never was. Even for a bail violation, you don't keep someone in Belmarsh. But now, for more than 18 months, he has finished that sentence for the bail violation, and there is no legal basis for keeping him in there because preventive detention must be used as a last resort. If there are no others, less intrusive means to prevent his escape, such as house arrest.
This is just another one of those things, fam. Like, dude is being held in a supermax prison. Like, he was being held for bail violation. That was only 50 weeks. He's been done with that for quite some time, and he's still being held in a supermax prison for no reason. Like, no reason whatsoever. That's insane. That's why can't he be on house arrest? First of all, he's one of the most recognizable people on planet Earth, and we're in the middle of a COVID lockdown. Where is he going to go? Like, why can't he be put on house arrest and go, spend time with his family and recuperate? But that's the thing. They don't want him to recuperate. This is, Melzer's right. This is all about breaking him down.
Do you want to pick up these last two?
Oh, yeah. But even if in the end they release Assange in the UK, remember that under the current court judgment, he will actually remain extraditable to the US. The only reason he is not being extradited is his mental health. If he starts working for Wikileaks again, they can easily say, and they will let him know, if you start working for Wikileaks again, we will consider that you no longer have a mental issue and we will rearrest you, and the United States will again ask for his extradition. And then this whole judicial proceeding starts anew with Assange in prison for several years. If he leaves the UK and goes to France, then the US can ask France for his extradition because the British court decision rejecting his extradition is only binding for the British authorities. So in effect, unless the US drops the charges or pardons him, they can continue to punish him by process for the rest of his life. And that's the plan. Julian told us that years ago. My suspicion is that that is exactly what they want. They want to keep him blocked and silenced. It's also to punish him personally, but they are punishing him primarily to scare everybody else. Absolutely, to make sure that you don't want to launch WikiLeaks and disclose all these secrets. The message is, if ever you have evidence of atrocious crimes, don't disclose it because this is what will happen to you. And that's what. Yeah, this is again head on the stake. They just want to warn everybody, don't do this. Don't be Julian Assange is the message that they're trying to send. That's what they did with Chelsea Manning. That's why they tortured her, because they were sending a message. That's what they're doing. This is exactly that's why they're so harsh. That's why the punishments are so harsh for these people.
That's what they're doing to Joshua Schultes, right? So
yes, that's what and Daniel Hale and everybody, any whistleblower. That's what they do. Look what they did to John Kiriakou. They ruined him. Like he was financially ruined. He lost, I think, just so much. Like, they will destroy your life. And it's process. Like, that's what they do. Process is the punishment. And, I don't know why Melzer says that he suspects. Like, Julian showed us. That's the plan. Like 10 years ago, that Julian's like, look, this is what they intend to do to me. These are the different strategies that they have that they're going to try to use to silence me. But it's really not about, again, let me reiterate, it's not about Julian, because they're not trying to just silence him. They want to silence you, all of us. This is about silencing dissent in general. So it's not just about Julian. It really is not. So I just need people to recognize that there's so much more at stake here. It's huge, massive.
And the thing with Joshua Schultes too, they can't even prove that he did it. We know because of the CIA's own press releases that they have no idea who released Vault 7. But yet there's a man named Joshua Schultes that's being kept under special administrative measures for being an alleged source. They can't prove that he's done anything. They can't prove that he was even the one involved in this, but yet he's kept under special administrative measures, forced in a dog kennel for 5 hours to get a visitor, while in the kennel forced to urinate and defecate in a bag because there's no latrines. It's literally an outdoor dog kennel that if he wants to visit his mom, he has to be forced to be kept in for hours on end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this is it really is people, bigger picture is all I'm asking. Just try to look bigger picture. It's really kind of exhausting. It's just sad. It's sad that watching people cheer on their own demise, you know, like gleefully participate in their own destruction. It's sad. It's really terrifying too. Yeah, it really is. It's about so much more than just Julian or just Daniel Hale or just Joshua Schultes, or it's about, again, just silencing dissent. And it's been an ongoing battle. It's going to continue to be a battle. But what's different about this time is that they have slowly but surely chipped away at our rights to the point now where we're really in danger of losing like everything, all of it. So
and it's part of the Great Reset agenda, right? Like the prosecution of Julian, the fear that they're trying to impose on whistleblowers, and our inability to legally share classified information is part of that, the ongoing, currently happening in our streets, Great Reset agenda.
It's really weird to me. I mean, I guess maybe it's just the anarchist in me, but it's really weird to me that people are okay with giving that amount of power and cover to people like that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, to be fair, right? The classical anarchists are now the people running around screaming, "Listen to the state, put your masks on."
Oh, God.
So, like, you have people that are like, "We oppose all state power, but listen to them because they've never lied to us before."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's exhausting. It's the same thing as, like, just because I'm an anti-imperialist, like, it's a big thing for me. And seeing people with, like, Black Lives Matter in their bios cheering on the bombing of Syria or something, it's like, no, homies, there's a lot of hypocrisy. I just don't think it seems like we've been conditioned to be surface level thinkers. And so you take your tagline and your hashtag and you make that your identity and you don't think any deeper than that. And that's, you know, a weird place. It's a weird place we live in. It's a weird timeline.
Yeah. Ugh. Hopefully it gets better. One of the things that's getting better is Craig Murray. We talked about him with
Craig Murray's amazing.
He is. Do we want to go through that article? We got about like 15 minutes.
Yeah, I would like to. Craig Murray never gets enough coverage, in my opinion. So anytime we can talk about Craig Murray and what's happening to him is always a good time. You guys can support him in any way. I don't know if he's still accepting donations for legal fees. I'm sure you could check out his website or his Twitter. But he is being railroaded too. So anything that you can do to help, even if it's just like, you know, sharing his story or talking about it or whatever, he's definitely worthy of your support.
Do you want to pick it up and I'll read the second half?
Yeah. It is not in dispute that the CIA is in possession of Julian Assange's legal and medical files seized from the Ecuadorian embassy in London, including correspondence and drafting by his lawyers on his defense against extradition to the United States on espionage charges. The defense submitted evidence of this in court after Julian was arrested in the Ecuadorian embassy and removed. All of his personal possessions were illegally seized by the Ecuadorian. Oh, my computer keeps.
Sorry.
Okay. No, it's fine. It was jumpy. The defense submitted evidence of this in court after Julian was arrested in the Ecuadorian embassy and removed. All of his personal possessions were illegally seized by the Ecuadorian authorities, including his files and his IT equipment. These were then shipped back to Ecuador by diplomatic bag. There, they were handed over to the CIA. These facts were agreed in court in Assange's extradition hearing by the U.S. authorities. However, they claim that the proceedings were not tainted by the fact that the prosecuting state had seized all the defendants' legal papers because Chinese walls within the U.S. government meant that the CIA would not pass any of the information onto the Justice Department. Frankly, if anybody believes that, then I have a bridge to sell you. In any court in any Western jurisdiction against any other defendant but Assange, the seizure of the defense's legal files by the state seeking extradition would in itself be sufficient for the case immediately to be thrown out as hopelessly tainted. That is without adding the fact that the CIA was also secretly video recording Assange through the UC Global Security firm and was specifically recording his meetings with his lawyers. As it happens, UC Global also recorded for the CIA several of my own meetings with Julian, and I shall next month be traveling to Madrid to give evidence in the criminal trial of David Morales, CEO of UC Global, for illegal spying. At least I shall be, if I am not in prison myself, as a result of the suppression of my own reporting of the defense in the Alex Salmon case. Yeah, this dude's kind of a badass.
Yeah, and that was actually the thing we were talking with Deepa about, is the fact that they're trying to put him in jail
so that he can't,
week before he leaves to go testify against the CIA.
Yes. And you think that's a coincidence? Come on. Like you said, I got to bridge this idea. I asked one simple question. The CIA put substantial effort into recording Assange's meetings with his legal team, and UC Global employees also gave evidence they were instructed physically to follow his lawyers, who in addition suffered burglaries and other intrusions. The CIA put effort into collecting specifically his legal papers from Quito? I don't know how to say that. If there are effective Chinese walls preventing the stolen and eavesdrop material on his legal defense being given or explained to the American government prosecutors, then who is the market for these legal papers? Who is the CIA providing them to? What other purpose are the CIA supposed to be seizing his legal papers for? I mean, I'm sure that they just, just some light reading material. There is no legitimate answer to these questions. I find breathtaking the UK courts. I don't know that word.
It's a Craig Murray word. Just make one up. Just add a.
No, I think it's insolence, but I'm gonna have to go look it up now, because I do this all the time. Like Craig Murray, I have a pretty decent vocabulary, but sometimes I'm like, I need to go look that up. That's a good word. About the most gross and deliberate violation of attorney-client privilege of which the human imagination is able to conceive. Yet this is just one of the numerous breaches of procedure in the Assange case. I am frequently asked about the current legal situation. The USA has submitted its appeal to the English and Welsh High Court against the decision not to extradite. The defense have submitted their response to the appeal. In doing so, they have also submitted a counter appeal against the many deeply concerning points on which Judge Vanessa Baraister ruled extradition was possible before ruling it out on the sole grounds of medical history and conditions of custody. The situation now is complex. The first thing to be said is that the High Court has not yet ruled, and the United States government's grounds for appeal have sufficient legal merit to be considered, and thus accepted the case and set a hearing date. This is taking much longer than usual, and hope is growing that the High Court may rule that the United States grounds for appeal are too legally weak to meet the bar of a hearing. If that is the case, Julian could suddenly be released very quickly. I wish I had some hope for that, but it doesn't seem likely. If the appeal is accepted,
go ahead.
Is this super long?
No,
I just don't want to bore everybody.
This is the end part. This is the last.
Okay. Cool. I just don't want to bore everybody. If the appeal is accepted, a hearing date will be set, and the legal grapevine thinks that that could be as early as July, much quicker than usual. We then have the further complication that the counter appeal by the defense is not an automatic process. Indeed, it is exceptional. The normal procedure would be that the High Court would hear the U.S. appeal on the medical and conditions of imprisonment points and the defense response and rule on that. Should the U.S. appeal succeed, the High Court would send that judgment back down to Judge Baraister, who would reconvene Westminster Magistrates Court and order the extradition. The defense could then appeal to the High Court against the extradition on all other grounds, which are numerous, but headed by breach of the provision on no political extradition of the treaty under which the extradition is taking place. The whole process would then start again, which could take us into 2022 with Julian still in jail. The defense hoped that the High Court would instead take the counter appeal at the same time and hear all the arguments together, but it is by no means a given the High Court will agree. If the High Court considers the U.S. appeal weak, there is a danger that the High Court would also think a hearing on all other points, which would last weeks, would be an unnecessary waste of its time, which leads us to the paradox that a quick victory for Julian on health grounds that sees him released would leave in place as a precedent the awful aspects of Baraister's ruling on extradition for political offense being lawful, and on the dismissal of Article 5 freedom of speech arguments, and the acceptance of U.S. universal jurisdiction over publishing of U.S. classified information worldwide. A further paradox which may trouble us in the future is that if released, and if U.S. President Joe Biden is determined to continue the persecution of whistleblowers and of Wikileaks, Julian Assange could find himself trapped in England. Anywhere that he goes, including his native Australia, he could be the subject of further U.S. extradition requests, leading to imprisonment. This is a dilemma of my friend Lori Love, whose lawyers advised him against even accepting my invitation to visit Scotland in case a new U.S. extradition request is issued in any other jurisdiction he visits. Lori is only definitely safe from extradition in England and Wales. There is a further danger that the British Home Office might immediately, on release, seek to deport Julian to Australia on the grounds his UK visa has expired, and that the Australian government may imprison him there in pursuit of a further U.S. extradition request. So in aiming for a situation where Julian can work, run WikiLeaks, and contribute his remarkable talent and intelligence to further expansion of freedom of speech and the internet and empowering of ordinary citizens, we still all have work to do. Yes, we do. Yeah, and that's what I mean, people ask me all the time, as Craig Murray just said there, that people ask him all the time, like what's next, like what's going on, like what are the different, and it's very complex. There are a lot of different things and moving parts, and there are a lot of different outcomes that are possible, and there are a lot of, you know, potential appeals, and it's very messy, and it's intentionally messy, and it's like he said, there's really a lot of danger regarding so much moving forward, not just Julian's own personal health and safety, but you know, if, like I said, if there's like a quick victory for Julian on health grounds, well, that's great for Julian. Like we should definitely applaud and cheer for that, because that, you know, definitely saves his life. But Jesus Christ, that then sets us all up for this unbelievable precedent being set.
Well, that's the horror show. That's the catch-22. Yeah. Like, not even the paradox, but like the thing they are doing at this point is saying, if you appeal this, we're going to keep fucking torturing you.
Yeah.
If you accept these arguments and you say, yeah, you know, I'm suicidal, I'm not going to publish anything anymore, like I'm going off to disappear.
And seriously, what they could do to him. I mean, even if he is released, like it said in the article, they can then be like, oh, okay, your visa's expired, so now we're going to deport you back to Australia. And then the minute he lands in Australia, he'll be picked up, he'll be imprisoned, and there'll be a whole other legal process, because the U.S. will then request extradition from Australia, and it just starts everything all over again. And that is what we're talking about. That is the punishment by process. That is exactly what Julian predicted was going to happen. Didn't predict, proved, like showed us source document that these were their plans, and that's exactly what they're trying to do, and that's what we have to keep like trying to fight against, and making sure that we can they need to drop the charges, period, end of story, period. That's it. That is the goal. Drop the charges. Like, it's not just about no extradition, it is about dropping the charges.
The horrifying part too with that whole being deported to Australia that Craig Murray lays out there, Australia doesn't have a First Amendment. Australia has zero
they don't have a Bill of Rights.
Legal protection for journalists. It's all built on basically frail law from 100 years ago when they broke British power, but never got a constitution put in place. So even if
it never got ratified, I think they had something. I think there was something, but it never got ratified.
Yep, and that's something that David McBride's case showed us in the raid on the ABC journalists, because in Australian law, their federal government has the right to literally rewrite the information in a press room. The Australian government can walk in to any media institution in Australia and say, no, you're writing it like this or going to jail.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're going to try to fucking deport Julian to that country, so that way it's an even quicker rendition to the U.S. Because
I don't think it'll be quicker. I think that they really just want to drag it out, because I don't think any country really wants to be responsible for handing him over. I don't even know that the United States really wants to try him under the Espionage Act. I just think that they think that torturing him publicly will be enough. And that's really, it's not even about punishing him, like getting like a quick punishment. Like, I think they want to drag it out. I think that's been the plan this whole time. I think that's why they let him sit in the embassy for 7 years. I think that the entire thought process has been, we need to drag this out and make it as painful and as just awful and in public. Like, they're doing this all in public. And yes, the mainstream media doesn't cover it, but it's still, I think, enough people, especially really they just need to, in certain channels and certain, like, you know, people who think a certain way, don't stray too far, or this is what happens to you. And I just think they want to make it as awful and long and drawn out and painful as possible. It's really all I don't think they want swift justice.
No,
I mean,
throwing
him in a hole for the next 175 years doesn't really help them in any way. People will just forget. People have very short memories. But if they drag it out and show how horrific he's been treated, that's what will scare people.
I agree. It's fucking terrifying. It's the chilling effect. But the thing we would like to present to everyone is the boiling effect and what fucking will happen in global media when the United States is forced to say, well, you can publish classified information in other countries. Right? Because that was the hope in the UK court, is that they would say, no, you're allowed to publish classified US information in the UK. Because that's what this case is ultimately about. So if these charges get dropped and their hand gets forced in that manner, we will see a watershed of U.S. classified information come out, and that is what I hope to see.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's what makes events like DEPA so important. You know, just
Denver
trying
event
to
where Kendra's going to be streaming
and just so everybody knows, Kendra, our co-host and dear friend Kendra in Denver, if you're anywhere near the Denver area on May 8th, the day that DEPA's event is going to be taking place at 11 a.m. at the Capitol in Denver, they're going to be streaming. They're having a rally there, and they're also going to be streaming the event while they're there. So you can go both to the rally, and then you can also watch the stream of DEPA's event while you're at the rally. So that's at the Capitol building on May 8th. At 11 a.m. So definitely try, if you're in that area, definitely try to get out to that for sure. And definitely check out DEPA's event. I'm really excited about it. There's a lot of really cool people. So yeah, that'll be good.
I'm pumped.
Yeah.
And I want to give a big shout out to the DC crew. I know we talked about them a billion times, but Josh and Jordan out there are doing a great job. They've had multiple events already, even since we left on April 11th. So big shout out and big thank you to those people on the ground in DC making it happen.
I love it. I love it so much.
But are we ready to wrap?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Do you want to go first and then I'll go second? Or you want to go?
I love that you're so accommodating to my anxiety. Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at Sarcasm Stardust. I know you guys already know all that shit. Like it's not like nobody, if you're here, you know I'm on Twitter. So I have another show called Facts on the Ground. You should check that out and subscribe to it. We just started a really cool series where we're trying our very best to look at like the history of Palestine, and like we just did like one episode where we kind of examined the origins of Zionism and all that good stuff. So that's going to be a multi-part series that we've only done one of so far, but definitely check that out. It's been fun. And also I've been learning a lot too, because I mean, I know a decent amount, but there's always going to be something new that you pick up on or whatever. And then also Bitch on Wednesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern. It's so fun to just vent. It really is. I've had guests on the last 2 weeks. People have been asking me to just do it solo and then like kind of like talk to the chat more and like bitch with the chat more. I don't know. We'll see. Like last week I was going to do it solo, and then I saw Steve on Twitter and I'm like, dude, you should come. Cause I really just bitching with it's more fun to bitch with friends, you know? So, yeah, but Sleepy J hangs out with me too. He's awesome. He's been very helpful with, cause my internet sucks, y'all. It really does. Yeah. And I think, and the billboard, of course, hopefully, no, not hopefully. This week, we're going to have something finalized. I'm like putting my foot down, even if I have to make the decision by myself, which I really don't want to, but there you have it. So donate to that. Once we get the Ohio one up, I'm going to start looking at other states or other locations, maybe even other locations in Ohio. I don't know, maybe like Cleveland, Cincinnati, whatever. I think any like major metropolitan area, we should definitely be eyeballing. The Midwest is cheap as fuck though. Like you can get billboards for pretty cheap. You can get like a really nice billboard in like a super fantastic location for like $3,000. So in some other markets like New York or like out west, oh my God, it's so expensive. It's so expensive. So yeah, I mean, we can get even just the Midwest though. I mean, I think that's a great demographic for us to be reaching out to. So yeah, if we can get like multiple billboards up across the Midwest, that would be awesome. Like that would be super rad. So yeah, I'm going to get that nailed out this week. And I'll update everybody once I get that done. And other than that, I think that's all I have, I think.
Cool. My name's Andrew Smith. You can follow me on Twitter at Andrew Zigmund, Zigmund. Not the most active on Twitter, but I will respond to DMs when they're open. I want to give a big shout out to my buddy Krish Mohan. Killing it with his live shows. They're absolutely awesome. It's not every Friday, but he's a stand-up comedian.
I think it's the last Friday of every month.
Yeah. So if you get a chance, connect with him. It's Fork Full of Noodles, Bowl Full of Noodles.
The show is Fork Full of Noodles, but you can find him at Krish Mohan, HAHA, HAHA. So KRISHMOHAN HAHA. That's on Twitter. You can find him on YouTube. There is he on Rockfin? I think he's on Rockfin.
He's on Rockfin too. Yep.
Yeah. So you can. I think that's across platforms. That's where you get like his handle or whatever, his name, whatever the fuck you call it. I'm such a boomer.
But everybody, please don't stop doing what you can with the time and the money that you have, because right now our time is running out. We have tons of events all across the globe, all across the U.S. going on.
Oh, wait. Can I tell you about one idea? Please, quickly, real quick.
Always.
Okay, so this is like a very niche idea, but I have a Jeep, okay? And there's a thing called Duck Duck Jeep. And basically it's like you carry around like little mini rubber duckies. And if you like, there's little cards that you can print out or whatever. And if you see a Jeep in a parking lot, you like run over and stick a Duck Duck Jeep in their like their handle of their door. So it's like a Jeep thing, you know, like the Jeep wave. It's another thing where it's like a weird, I don't know, it's a weird cultish kind of thing, but it's fun. So I just got like 2 giant bags of rubber duckies, and I'm gonna make little Duck Duck Jeeps, but I'm gonna include information and stickers on Julian Assange. So that's just another like easy, it's not going to cost me much of anything. I think the rubber duckies I got for like, I don't know, maybe $10, and I got like 150, I think, because I think they came in bags of 75. It's like those little mini rubber duckies, and you can just print off the little things yourself. And then I'm just going to carry them around in my Jeep. And if I see a Jeep in a parking lot, I'll go slip one in there. Bam. You just did some awesome work, you know, get creative.
Heck yeah. I love it.
Sorry.
But we will see you all on Tuesday. Thank you so much for hanging out.